It's the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines. For more on the Seminoles, including Osceola's coverage from veteran Seminole insiders, message boards, Osceola virtual happy hours, and more, go to theosceola.com. And right now, enter the code FSU20 and get 20% off your annual subscription. That's FSU20.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines podcast. My name is Patrick Burnham. I'm a football writer for the Osceola and the host of today's podcast. I am joined by the owner and publisher of the Osceola, Jerry Kutz, the managing editor of the Osceola, Bob Ferrante, former FSU offensive lineman and college football coach, and Osceola football analyst Mark Salva, and former FSU linebacker coach Wally Burnham, who has over 50 years experience in college football. Guys, there's a lot to cover after FSU's 16-13 loss to Georgia Tech and head coach Mike Norvell's debut as a Seminoles head coach. So let's get started. All right, guys, before we talk about what happened on the field, and there was plenty of good and bad to talk about, let's talk about the game day experience prior to kickoff. As we all know, this was a very unique experience. It's been a very unique year surrounding college football and live athletic events. But, Jerry, I want to start with you. Obviously, you spent some time in and around the stadium, College Town, before the game. Kind of tell us what the FSU fan experience was like prior to kickoff.
Well, if you're a football fan, it was better experience to me than a normal football game because you didn't have any traffic getting there. You didn't have any parking issues. The Wi-Fi was spectacular throughout the game. There was you could get a cold beer in the stadium. And most people that I saw were there to watch the football game and not to socialize or, have a party. I thought pretty much everybody that I saw was watching the game. And I like to watch the game, and I don't like people bothering me when I watch it. And I was able to do that throughout the game.
Bob, what was your experience like? Obviously coming in, you've been covering Florida State football games for a long time.
It was kind of surreal walking up. I mean, there was no tailgating, none of the normal pageantry, the marching chiefs in Hauser Stadium doing the skull session, none of that, none of the sod cemetery events as you walk, between baseball stadium and the practice field. I did see about 12 students who were doing, checkerboard, garnet and gold body paint, and talked with them for a few minutes. Students were fired up in that group and ready to sweat that body paint off pretty fast. But it did not have a normal college football Saturday feel to it as you walked into the stadium to me. But I think in a certain way, I was just thankful that a game was happening, honestly, and we were going to watch finally after so much time some football.
Yeah, well, I agree with you on that. It was both surreal and I was happy that we had football. But I was walking in from the press parking area and went to the lot behind the baseball stadium where it's usually littered with thousands of folks tailgating. And there was one car in that parking lot. It was like a ghost town. And then as I circled back by the practice fields right in front of the Moore Center, there's usually a lot of activity there between recruits, and there was absolutely nobody. There was, again, probably two cars. Obviously, at this point, the coaches had not even arrived. I was about 3.5 hours before the game. But so it was strange. But like you, glad there was football. Of course, I did miss the marching chiefs not being on the field either before the game or halftime, but was glad to get up to the press box and be able to watch a little football. And we did. We got to watch about 7 hours of football thanks to 2 lightning delays, and we got to watch a lot more football on television probably than we wanted to other games. But there were, of course, a lot of factors that played into Florida State losing a very close game, a lot of self-inflicted wounds by both teams. But there are a couple of talking points that we had coming into the game. Keys to victory were big plays, controlling the line of scrimmage, and getting to the quarterback against Virginia Tech. And, of course, FSU had what I want to start with is first impressions, big plays. FSU had a propensity last year of giving up a lot of big plays on defense and also on offense. But what I want to talk about first is the big plays on defense. FSU gave up 18 plays of 10 yards or more, which is right now fifth most in Division I football. They were 126 in that category last year. And Coach Burnham, I want to start with you on that. How many versus today's modern offenses? How many big plays are too many? And how does FSU defense shore this problem up? It's a problem that it was persistent last year and has continued this year in the first game.
Well, Pat, this day and time, it's tough. It's tough. But, there's no way that you can give up, 18 of them. How does that translate over to what the offense is having to do, even if you end up stopping them? Does that translate into field position? Does it translate into some type of score? But I don't think you can give up over 4 or 5 a game. I really don't. And that is tough to do. And I realize that. But you start going further than that, you're not playing very good sound defense at some point. There's going to be a lot of missed assignments, missed alignments, coverages, people not being in the right gaps. There's a lot of things that contribute to that. But I think that as much as anything caught my attention last night, the big plays that were given up on defense. And as I rewatched the tape, there were some soft coverages, and not that the players were soft. The alignment and everything that was called, they were deep, giving up some, 5-yard plays on some passes. And another thing that really caught my eye was how we gave up the flats, whether it be run or it be pass. I'm surprised that Georgia Tech didn't throw the ball in those areas more than they ended up doing.
All right, you got 2 weeks to get ready for Miami, and arguably one of the most versatile quarterbacks in college football, Derek King, who's probably a more talented runner than the guy you just played. Maybe not as talented as a passer, although a more experienced passer. How do you try to shore that up if you're FSU defensive coordinator Adam Fuller?
Well, it starts off with basic alignments, gap control up front. Another thing that caught my eye, that they gave up some big – they didn't have many long runs, but the quarterback had 2 or 3 of them, was the offensive lineman getting up on the backside linebackers. It was at times terrible. Those guys, I don't know what they were reading, and they're not criticizing the coaching for it. Not at all, because I don't know what they've been told. But that can't happen on outside sweeps and things like that. Maybe they had backside responsibility. I don't know, on the quarterback or something like that. But flow was going away from them, and by the time they read and reacted, offensive linemen were up on them, just covering them up. But I think as the defensive staff, you got to go back and you got to evaluate what you're doing, just like you do every week. And to me, they had some major concerns with those 2 areas, the flats and the softer coverages. They never really they played some press man with man-free coverage at times where they would challenge the receivers, and it seemed to work, but most of the time it was in a blitz situation. So the guys got to go back and evaluate keep evaluating, which I'm sure they are. What these kids can do and how they can react to certain coverages and things like that. So, and I know offenses make you play certain ways, and I understand all that, but at the same time, you've got to correct it somehow.
And, of course, the offense also had a propensity last year to give up big plays in the form of sacks, turnovers, penalties, and, they played well in that regard most of the game, but when they lost some of their key players on the offensive line, they gave up 2 sacks. One was a sack fumble, which led to the game-winning field goal by Georgia Tech. So it affected teams both sides of the ball. And Mark, I want to get with the offensive line with you a little bit further into the show. In fact, here in a second with the second key of the game, we all thought was control the line of scrimmage. The strength of the FSU defense was supposed to be its defensive front four, which was not dominant against Georgia Tech. The Yellow Jackets averaged over 5 yards on first down and over 4 yards per rushing attempt on first down and 4 yards rushing for the game. Coach Burnham, what did you see from the FSU front seven, and what could they have done to be more successful, or what was Georgia Tech doing to overcome what Florida State was doing on defense?
Well, that's the thing about it. I don't know what Georgia Tech did any different than you would have practiced for their type of spread offense. I thought the defensive tackles up front, they were staying in their gaps pretty good, and they tried to move them at times to let the linebackers fit another gap or whatever, and they had a little bit of trouble with that, as far as the linebackers knowing exactly where the linemen were going. I'm sure they knew, but that changes their gap responsibility at the same time. So I think that, I don't know the experience and everything that those linebackers, I don't know who's in there and who's not. But I know that was one thing. But the defensive ends lost, they didn't set the edge a couple of times. They didn't contain the quarterback a couple of times. You could tell they were playing quarterback responsibility with what they were doing. And then they were running one defense where they were dropping back, slanting one way and dropping back the outside of the defensive end toward the slant. And he's becoming a linebacker. He lost a back in the flat one time. He had that responsibility. So those kind of things they got to clean up, which you can. And but to me, those are the things that would help the defensive line.
Did you see any indication that this could be a dominant front four against Georgia Tech?
Pat, I watched tape on Georgia Tech the last 3 or 4 weeks, and I thought I was so surprised as the game went on how we weren't dominating their offensive line. I think the more the game went on, the more aggressive Georgia Tech's offensive line became, more physical. And our guys, Florida State guys, did not respond in the same way. We didn't meet or exceed their energy, their physicality, or those kind of things, in my opinion, as the game went on.
All right, Mark, I want to turn to you now. The other key was the other side of the ball. Florida State needed to come out and show improvement on its offensive line play. And particularly, we felt as a group that they needed to come out and prove that they could come out and run the ball effectively when they wanted to run the ball and not make the offense so much reliant on the pass game as it was last year. And while I thought the offensive line overall showed some improvement over last year, and not by any great shakes, but certainly improved, they only totaled 57 yards on 19 attempts by the two running backs. What did you see? Does the offensive line look better overall to you? And why are they continuing to struggle to find success in the run game?
Yeah, I think they did look better to me overall. Some of the things I was looking for less missed assignments, less, better communication. Just trying to see if they had an idea of understanding what it was they're trying to do. That was the first key for me going into the game. I did see those things. I think they understood their assignments. I didn't see a lot of free runners at all. I saw a lot of communication. In fact, there was a couple of times where plays were checked on the line of scrimmage. I saw the center point, tackles talking. There's a lot of communication going on, and that made me feel good. The execution obviously has to get lots better. And then the other part was, I've talked about it before, is, better attitude and effort. Because I think offensive line play, if you're going to play physically, and especially in the running game, it's all about attitude and effort. We've been a bad football team for a long time, and it's probably unrealistic for me to think it's going to turn overnight, especially with the circumstances that we have found ourselves in terms of the ability to practice and implement our system. So, is it better? Yeah, I think maybe I could probably say it's a little better, but why don't we run the ball better? It's the little things. I know, look, when I coached, at FSU, we had a handful of plays that we were going to run in any formation, any personnel group, and we could run it really good, and we had those techniques and those things honed down. We could run it against any front, any blitz, anything. Right? When I was in South Carolina, we committed to running the zone play, and we could run that zone play in any personnel group, any formation, against any defense, and my guys knew what to do, and everything. You have to have something that you can rely on. It could be the zone, it could be the power, whatever it is, the outside zone, whatever it is. Hold on to that and say, this is going to be our play, and we're going to have everything. We're going to know exactly how to handle every single situation. So when I talked about the example of an early in the game, we ran a power play with the H-back pulling across, going to the left, and it was blocked pretty well everywhere, and the defense was set up well for it, and except for one situation, and that was in between Lucas and Washington, right? And if they would have secured that down lineman and climbed the linebacker in the right way, it was one-on-one with the safety. But the timing wasn't right. One guy released too early, head on the wrong side, and so it just, so the tackle slide off made the play. The linebacker was there, and it was a 1-yard gain. It's the little margins like that, doing it exactly right, is what is the difference between a 1-yard gain and an 8 or a broken tackle and a touchdown, right? And it's to do that. And I said this, and look, most of my coordinators were always quarterback guys and guys that want to throw the ball all over the field. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But you got to call runs, and you got to call specific runs a number of times in the course of a game. And it doesn't have to be one time a series. Offensive linemen have to get the feel for how defensive linemen are reacting. What's the defense of the day? How are they going to play our runs, and then make adjustments? And you have an answer for everything. And so all those things come into play in having a successful running game. And it takes commitment, both from the coordinator, from the line, and from everybody, that this is what we're going to do. And I didn't necessarily see that yesterday. I'm hoping it's because the inventory of plays might have been low because of the situation we were in, and we had to get ready for a game and try to get, all that stuff that we talked about earlier.
Yep.
That's what I think.
Yeah, I thought they would probably feed the ball to Coburn and Webb a little bit more than what they did out of the backfield. I was shocked that it was only 19 attempts. All right. The third factor that we thought as a team was going to be the key to the victory was get to the quarterback. Florida State was facing for the second year in a row, facing a true freshman quarterback in the season opener. And Jeff Sims went 25 of 34 on the day, never looked fazed by anything that Florida State did defensively. And I thought they needed to get after him often and early. And it looked like Florida State was playing a lot of off coverage early, but didn't bring any pressure with it. Coach Burnham, what could FSU have done to get Sims more effectively and make him uncomfortable before he got some confidence in his game?
Well, I was surprised with a freshman quarterback that they didn't bring pressure early. Run pressure, pass pressure, those kind of things to kind of get him unsettled and everything. But the guy never flinched. I mean, he fell on TV. He was very calm and collected. And because they couldn't get there, they couldn't even put any pressure at times with the 4-man rush. Now, I saw him one time down in the red zone play some zero coverage with some blitzes, and I saw him play some man free several times, and they would roll up the corner to the weak side, the split inside, and most of the time to the short side of the field. And then the other time they were playing, looked like to me, quarters coverage with man on the backside trying to bring the free safety down a little bit and give him responsibility for the back and the flat and those kind of things. But we never got enough pressure to make the kid feel uncomfortable. And I think that was one of the big things. And the kid got more and more confidence as the game went on. He just felt pretty good. He said, well, I'm not going to get hit many times probably today. And so those are the things I think should have or could have helped him, in the passing game. Not that he had a great day, but he never felt the pressure. Mark,
what did you see Georgia Tech doing offensively that kind of circumvented what Florida State was doing?
Yeah,
defensively?
I think early on, to Wally's point, I think they were anticipating a lot of pressure. Early on, I saw them do a lot of sprint out. They try to seal the edge and sprint them out and on short sprint outs and throw some simple routes combinations. I saw them do some really quick passes where they would just do all clear outs and cross somebody really quick. So it was a really quick throw. Saw them do some boots and play action boots. They ran some play action early, to try to distract the defense, give them some eye candy. And then, that one vertical he hit to the tight end, that was kind of a bad throw. It was a play action pass, where all the defense jumped on the back and he got it off, so they took care of him early. And to Wally's point, when they look, they're doing nothing but playing quarters and leaving the flat wide open. They just kind of said, okay, we can relax and we got 5 to block 4 and maybe 6 to block 4 or 5. And, he can sit back there and do what he needs to do. So our inability to put pressure on with 4 guys hurt us in our unwillingness to throw an extra blitz, an extra brusher in there somewhere along the line probably made the kid feel a little too comfortable.
All right. Well, Bob, I want to bring you back in here now. You have probably seen every single snap that James Blackman has taken at Florida State as he's in his fourth offense since he's been here, fourth offensive coordinator. What were your thoughts, number one, on how James has progressed since last season, how he performed in this particular game, and how they used Jordan Travis against Georgia Tech?
I thought James, the first 2 drives looked really, really good. It seemed like he stuck to the script and executed what they were trying to do, to get 10 quick points and be up. Even with that rain delay, they came after that first drive, rain delay, still had a productive second drive where he got a field goal. But after that, he just didn't look comfortable, settled. Players around him weren't, producing at all. There was offensive line issues, drops. Running game wasn't successful. They were able to do some dump offs to the running backs. The screen game was going really well, I thought, at times. But James just wasn't able to put together drives. And if you're not putting together drives, you're not doing anything successfully. The Jordan Travis thing I thought was amusing. Pat, we talked about it. He looked like Marcus Outzen 2.0 back there, just kind of running around and trying to do something. And at times, he made something. He got a couple first downs, but it's a very one-dimensional offense with almost called a Marcus with Jordan in there,
Well, that's what we call ground Jordan at Florida State. It's not Air Jordan, it's ground Jordan when Mr. Travis is in the game.
For me, looking at James, I think the thing he really struggles with is anticipating throws. I think there were guys open. If he would just hit his third step and cut the ball loose, I think there were guys there. I think unless they're wide open or they're facing him and coming back to the ball or he's hitting a takeoff, he has a hard time anticipating certain cuts. And I think because he had time, he'd bail, and hold the ball and bail. And then I think I think he locks into certain guys too. I think there are several instances when he was locked. I know a couple of times he was locked in on 11. He was going to throw it to him come hell or high water. And same thing with Terry. I think so I think his reading his progressions. These are things he's got. These are habits that he's been allowed to have over the course of the last 3 years, and they're things going to be hard to break. That's what it is.
Hey, Jerry, I want to ask you, obviously we've talked a lot this preseason as the Osceola team, and, we've got some good information from some of our sources that have been around the team. Heard a lot of great things about true freshman Tate Rodemaker. He did not make an appearance in the game. Or did that surprise you based off what you've been hearing coming into the season?
Well, I had heard that this week they had run Travis as the number 2 with the number 2 reps. He was getting all the work. So I wasn't surprised that, they ran Rodemaker with second most reps. What I was surprised at with Travis was that all they did was run. They had put in a package just for him to run. They really didn't give him an opportunity to play in the base offense. That's what stunned me. If you really believe that you need to find an answer for Blackman, you got to give Travis a chance to throw the ball.
Well, and I think some of that goes back to the fact that we know that he missed substantial time in the preseason. So I think that any package you had for Jordan was going to be limited. And I'll ask Bob and Mark. You guys have heard some of the things that we've been talking about Tate. I was a little bit surprised they didn't play him. I don't know whether they were trying to save him for confidence reasons. They wanted to go into his first game and for it to be a bad experience. But Bob, were you shocked?
I wanted to see more of Tate. I think you're only going to learn as a quarterback in the games. I mean, you can get a lot out of practice. You can get a ton out of a scrimmage, a simulated deal against a really good defense. But you only really learn on game days. And I'm kind of one of those Kentucky Derby offense types where I want to see the second team types get in the game, get meaningful opportunities, because then you get the film. Then you can build on that film for the next week and the next week. Look, if Tate doesn't get in this game, so be it. But there's got to be a plan moving forward for Tate or Chubba or whoever. Because I'm just not sure Jordan Travis is a guy who's a threat to be a number one quarterback. He's more of just that situational package type of quarterback.
Yeah, I guess where I question Tate not playing was based on what we know, he got significantly more snaps in camp. Go ahead, Mark.
I was to say, I think the thing you got to balance out too, when you're talking about bringing in a young quarterback, is are you going to do more harm than good?
That was one of my questions.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think, okay, they see him every day, they know what they're seeing. Is for the long term. I mean, we're in it for the long term. Is it going to hurt him more going in a situation where he's not exactly just ready yet? Do we try to make do with what we got? I mean, those are the things you got to consider, and you got to balance out as a coach. And we got to trust they know what they're doing, and they see him every day. We know.
Yeah,
that's why when I heard that he did not get number 2 reps this week, that they had given those to Travis, then I was not surprised to see him in the game.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to move on to the offensive line play. Back to offensive line play, Mark. We've talked about the run game, but pass protection was also something we wanted to pay attention to. And while they weren't perfect, it had some key breakdowns, particularly as we've referenced the 2 sacks. The first 5, and just so people are aware, the 2 sacks came against backups. The sacks that ended up with the sack fumble came against backups due to injury. But kind of tell me what you saw from pass protection from the starting 5.
I think the left tackle's a good player. I think as a young player, he's got a good chance to be a good player. I thought the center did a nice job. I think the right tackle struggles with speed rushers to the outside. Love Taylor. I think we're going to have to protect him wide with either chip him, tight end, something out there to help him with some of these wide guys. I thought the trading off of twists looked much better. They did run a lot of twists and slants and those kinds of things. I thought the blitz pickup was really good for the most part. I mean, the breakdown of the blitz pickup wasn't that we didn't have a hat on the guys. The back, that early one, the back just totally missed the block.
Yeah, Corbin was in.
Yeah, so I think the assignments and the communication and all that was good. I think the execution has to improve in pass protection, across the board, but especially coordination with the backs. James did a nice job. I mean, they pointed it on TV when they brought one more than we can bring, and he threw that ball out in the flat on the hot receiver. I thought that was a nice job. And you know what? I didn't see a tackle coming off a guy. He should have came off the block a free rusher and then let the end go. That stuff like that would happen in the past. He stayed on his assignment. That tackle knew that if that guy came outside, we were throwing hot off of him, and he didn't come off his end. That's a big deal. We didn't see that very often. So I think we got a chance. We just got to really play. We got to play like tough guys. Wally brought it up earlier. Georgia Tech played like a bunch of tough guys up front on our defensive line, and our defensive line didn't respond. Okay, they imposed their will. We need to get to that point as an offensive line collectively and as an attitude on offense that we're going to be tough guys, bullies, and we need to go out there and do it. But that mentality is not inherent in these guys. They got to be made to do it, and it is hard to do it in the current environment that we're in. You can only practice so many days in pads and so many hours, and and all that stuff. So your influence as a coach, I guess, is limited than it used to be. My gosh, I for sure make Dante Lucas be a bully every time and not let up on that guy, because he can be. I think he has a chance. He's got to be made to do it.
Yeah, he's got a mean streak in him for sure. Jerry, quickly on the offensive line, what were your thoughts on what you saw in pass protection improvement over last year?
Yeah, well, I trust you guys on that.
Okay.
I know what Mark said. I know my limitations. And,
all right, well, I'll get you involved in this next one because I know you like linebacker play about as much as Coach Burnham does. Yeah. And just so everyone knows, when we're going to reference people by number, because Coach Burnham does not go by names, he goes by numbers. So FSU has a very a mixed group of linebackers. It's got 2 seniors that start. Then it's got a bunch of freshmen and redshirt freshmen and sophomores. Has some very talented young linebackers. But Coach Burnham, what did you think? Number 1 and number 35 are the seniors, and of course everyone else is either 32, 33s, which and our fans know who these kids' names are. But just so for your, what did you think of that? What did you see out of that group yesterday as a whole?
Well, I thought at times they were tentative. They a little hesitant to go where they're supposed to go or where they were supposed to go. I don't know where they're supposed to go, but I thought that happened a couple of times. I thought the guy, the local kid there.
Amari.
Oh, yeah, Amari. Yeah, I thought he was a playmaker. I don't know how well he played technique-wise and assignment-wise, but he made some plays, and he looked like he, was really into it, and maybe I don't know how many snaps he played, but if he'd have, he needed to be out there probably a little bit more. I just thought that they would be more downhill, a little bit more aggressive. A couple of times, they would take the correct gap responsibility and get hung up on a blocker too long and things like that. But that's probably because they probably changed the scheme, going to the 4-3, and this is their third, the seniors' third defensive, scheme that they've been in. They came out of the odd from last year for the most part. So anyway, I think they'll get better. I really do. They're good-looking kids physically. If they can handle everything assignment-wise and be in the right place at the right time. If you're just in the right place, most of the time you're going to have success. If you get lined up right. And I saw a couple of times where I thought, well, maybe they're lined up wrong, because what happened on the play should have involved them. And again, I'm not being critical of that part of it. I'm just saying it looked like that, and not knowing what they've been coached on, it's hard to say. But, you can tell they're athletes. I think maybe those couple of guys are lacking a little speed, against some people they're going to play down the road. And but at times they look very physical, trying to be, and but again, just like Coach Norvell said, we just got to keep working and getting better, and I think they will in the long run.
Well, we've talked a lot about how long it takes a true freshman quarterback or true or redshirt freshman offensive lineman to adapt to college football. Obviously, Steven Dix played a lot at middle linebacker yesterday. He is a true freshman. Can you tell us a little bit about the adjustment for how much responsibility a middle linebacker has and how his maturation process could play out?
Well, in my coaching career, I had one freshman that could start at inside linebacker, and that was Shade Tree, and of course that was a given, as we all know now. But it's a process. It's a learning process of going out there and feeling good about the call, what my responsibility is. The more they learn, things like this formation, the backs over here, the tight ends over here. These are the plays they can run out of this formation unless they've added something new for our game plan that might fool me a couple of times. If I'm in pass coverage, and I'm dropping to my zone, or I don't know whether they're playing spot drops or they might be playing match coverage on the receivers in their zone. As I get my pass keys and no matter if it's a run pass option or if it's just straight drop back out of the shotgun, I got to be aware of my key. Once the pass develops, then I got to know where the receivers are and what routes are they running. If a guy has an outside release, I do one thing. If a guy's got an inside release, I do another. And the other thing that I saw that I think evidently is not that coaching staff's philosophy is jamming slot receivers. Get something on those guys to help those safeties who might be able to help that corner, or he might read the quarterback and be able to help on the other side of the field. And so I think that's, again, I'm not being critical because you could tell they weren't coached to do that, and that's their philosophy. But to me, anytime you can get a hand on a receiver, then that's what you need to do. At least, get in his way a little bit. That's why hard corners are so effective. Make the quarterback make the hard throws, not the easy throws in a soft zone type deal. So I think it's the same thing about a linebacker or nickel back walked out on a slot guy. And so I think that they are going to get better, and I think they'll work hard enough, and hopefully they start understanding exactly what they got to do and feel comfortable when I see that formation. I know the down and distance. All that goes into linebacker play.
Well, Jerry, I know that you love linebacker play. Kind of what were your thoughts on what you saw yesterday?
Well, what Wally said that's preeminent there. I agree that Gaynor looks like a playmaker, and Dix came downhill a few times and really showed you what his capability is. And I'm going to kind of turn this with Wally a little bit. Wally, the thing that, I felt like when we were in a 4-man front with you guys back in the day, our defensive front tried to recreate the line of scrimmage 2 or 3 yards deep, which freed your linebackers to fly to gaps. Mm-hmm. And I didn't see that last night. I mean, on Saturday, I saw our defensive linemen catching blockers.
Yeah, I saw the same thing, Jerry. They weren't getting penetration and reacting off a down block or a reach block. It was like they were kind of absorbing some man blocking schemes instead of really taking off and trying to get penetration.
And that changes your angle as a linebacker to the gap you're trying to get over to, right?
Exactly. It's just like I mentioned earlier when they would move the defensive tackles, for instance, or bring the defensive end inside in the B gap, that changes where the linebackers fit. So, again, they got to rep that, but at the same time, they got to get the right alignment, you got to cheat your alignment. You can't say, all right, I'm on, and I'm talking about just enough that I can get to my gap if the balls run to my way. And then if it's not away, I don't get cut off.
At some point, I got the feeling that we were playing a bend but don't break defense.
Yeah,
almost a read run. Almost a read run. And that really doesn't give your linebackers a lot of opportunity to come downhill.
No, and I'm really surprised at that because of Odell. And of course I know that Odell, he's just won the game in that defensive meeting room, and whoever's making that final decision how they're going to play those techniques is another thing. But I was surprised. I'm with you there.
All right, well, I want to move it to special teams. We did see some improved special teams. Florida State had 2 blocked field goals, although I'm sure I think a Gopher could have blocked the second one. It was kind of low. 2 P and 20s, meaning that the kickoff coverage team tackled the returner inside their own 20-yard line. And what I was very happy to see were 2 kickoff returns by Travis Jay that were actually brought out past the 30-yard line, which obviously you're hoping works to your advantage as an offense. But Bob and Jerry, again, you guys have been around and seen more of the special teams issues over the last several years than most of us have. How impressed were you with the special teams yesterday, and how can this special teams units or these special teams units help this team out as it tries to find itself offensively and defensively?
I thought it was one of the best special teams performances we've seen in years, maybe a decade, honestly. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but even Alex Mastromano averaged about 48 yards on 3 of his punts. Travis Jay had a couple of good punt returns, although I saw him standing at the 5 and he fielded one, and I said, "Oh, no, don't do that." And then he got it up to 20. And I thought, okay, well, that worked out okay. But, man, that's definitely a first-time guy back there, game 1. Overall, a lot of positives. Even Parker Growthhouse, a walk-on. He's never had to make a big kick. He made 2 out of 3, including a 53-yarder. So a ton of positives there. Literally erased 7 points off the scoreboard and really kept the defense going, and I think energized and tried to will the team to a win.
Jerry?
To compliment what Bob said, and I agree with all that he said in terms of the performance, I was trying to watch the sideline and see what kind of organization, and they had a really good plan for numbers on the field where the players would line up on them before they went out there. And that the special teams coach, Coach JP, was very engaged throughout the game. So they definitely look, the results that we saw, I think, are the result of a good planning and execution during the game.
Yeah, and I think we're going to find ourselves in some tight games this year, and I think the special teams unit, what I got out of it yesterday was that the special teams units could be a difference maker in some ball games as we move throughout the year. All right, guys, we got 2 segments left. I know that between there's about 3 of us on here that kind of get chatty, so we'll try to speed things up a little bit on the end. And I include myself in the chatty group. So anyway. Not that I'm not making fun of anybody. All right, we're going to play Spears Up or Spears Down. We haven't had Spears Up or Spears Down in about 3 or 4 episodes, and Spears Up or Spears Down, we're going to do a little bit differently today. I'm not going to state a question and ask you to agree with it. What I want to do is Spears Up, what you took as a positive, and Spears Down, what you would like to see improvement in. And I'm going to try to end on a positive, so I'm going to start with my Spears Down. My Spears Down from yesterday was the defense continues to give up too many big plays. It came back to haunt them on every scoring drive. They had 3 or more plays of over 10 yards on both of the field goal drive. One of the field goal drives and obviously the touchdown drive. And the last field goal was set up by a offensive big play given up. But anyway, then my Spears Up, it was going to be too easy to go with special teams. So I went with offensive line play. And obviously, as we've talked, they were not perfect in any shape or form or way, but they did – particularly that first 5, protected the passer better and looked more organized and blitz pickup and discipline and with eye discipline and all those things. So I'm going with the first unit's ability to pass block. And Jerry, you get the next shot. What is your Spears Down and what is your Spears Up?
Spears Down would be defensive line. I did not think they capitulated, to use Mark Salva's favorite word, in the game. So I give them this. I'd love to be in Odell's meeting room and see what kind of leadership there is among his players this week. Spears Up, other than the special teams, of course. I kind of liked Corbin. I thought he caught the ball well out of the backfield. He did miss some pass pro. And there were several plays where he was able to fight forward and get first downs. I just like to see them run those guys a little bit more before I evaluate our running back core. But I saw enough to make me think he's a guy you can win with.
All right, Bob, Spears down and Spears up.
All right, Spears up would be too easy to go special teams, but how about Asante Samuel, 2 interceptions, 2 big pass breakups. He looked like a true number 1 type of corner on Saturday. Spears down, the one thing that kind of gave me pause was too many taking shots downfield for James. I don't know if that was by design or if he just thought he had something. I would have preferred maybe some more high percentage dump off screens. I know they did it for a little while, went away from it. Just wanted to see more of those high percentage passes to get some rhythm going, build some long drives, build some confidence for that offense.
Mark?
Yeah, so in general, Spears down for me is it looks like our talent level is such that we don't have a lot of margin for error. We have to play really, really sound, mistake-free football to give us a chance to win. And, the only way we're going to get out of that is recruit our way out of it. Spears up. If I'm a coach, I'm like, we got a lot of film to look at to make corrections to move towards that end. There's a lot of most of the stuff that happened, I think, can be coached off of film. And I would look for a lot of improvement between this first game and the next game.
Coach Burnham, Spears down, Spears up.
Spears down would be that we could play more physical for 60 minutes. I think that's got to come. And I know it's hard right now with the season going and, time and things like that. But I think that would be a big, big factor. Spears up, play Amari more.
Okay. All right. I'm going to ask you this was not a planned question, but did anybody surprise you with their performance yesterday, or was somebody obviously, Jerry, you mentioned Corbin, but anybody that impressed you more than what you thought you might be impressed? And Bob, I'll let you start because you're at the top of my screen.
It's a tough one. I think we saw flashes from the running backs. This staff has to figure out how to get the ball to those guys in space, whether it's by run, screen, line them up in the slot. We saw, I think Webb was lining up in the slot quite a bit. That was really intriguing. I think a nice wrinkle. Just got to maximize that talent. There's a ton of talent there in the running back room. Use that versatility.
Mark?
Cam McDonald. I think that guy's a weapon.
Jerry?
Mastromano, of course.
Coach Burnham?
Well, I'm going to pass.
Okay. All right. Mine would be Josh Griffiths. He flashed several times. A little bit better athlete than what I thought. He retraces his steps well and plays with tremendous effort. So that would be mine. All right. Jerry has always said that what separates us from other publications is that we have subject matter experts. And so we're going to let our 2 coaches finish this show for us in what we're going to call I Want to Be Like Mike. And we're going to put you in the shoes of head coach Mike Norvell. And, Mark, what is Mike Norvell telling his offensive coaches and players today, and what adjustments might he make offensively as they head towards Miami in 13 days?
I think the first thing he's going to do is sit down. He's going to look at them and say, guys, Dalvin Cook, Jameis Winston, and Kelvin Benjamin are not walking through that door. That's number one. We got what we got. Now we got to find a way to be productive. I think we got to find a running game. We got to commit to it, and we got to do what the dog can do. In other words, if we're going to go with Blackman, we're going to continue to go with Blackman, we have got to find things that he is comfortable doing and that he can execute. And we just got to ride with that. It would be nice if we could rely on the offensive collective. I think we put too much emphasis on the quarterback. If we could rely more on the offensive, I can't believe I'm saying this, rely more on the offensive line and the running game. You know what? They execute screens really well. I don't want to lose that point because you got to practice. We used to practice those screens relentless, and we commit 10 minutes a day to practicing screens. It looks like they did the same thing. They really executed those really well. That could be a weapon.
All right, Coach Burnham, what is Mike Norvell telling his defensive coaches and players today, and what adjustments might they make moving forward towards Miami in 13 days?
I think he's starting to get the front seven going. I think you got to have more production out of those 7 people, whether it be pass, run, or whatever it is. And probably the second thing is, hey, guys, you might give up a touchdown, but let's find a way to pressure quarterbacks, especially young quarterbacks that haven't had many reps and that came into school in January.
Well, guys, appreciate everyone joining me. It was a interesting day at Doak Campbell Stadium, a long day at Doak Campbell Stadium last night. And, of course, FSU has 2 weeks to get ready for the annual matchup against the Miami Hurricanes in Miami. And, of course, we'll be back on the Seminole Sidelines podcast later in the week, if not early part of next week, to talk a little bit more about college football. But, guys, thanks for joining me. I enjoyed it as always.
Thank you.
See you next week. Go Noles.
This has been another edition of the Osceola's Seminole Sidelines. To subscribe to the Osceola, go to theosceola.com. Go Noles!